Welcome to this episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. I'm Aric.
And I'm Angie.
We are married with a ton of kids.
We have 6 kids total. He has 3 and I have 3.
My name's Hallie and I love riding horses.
I'm Lexi and I love agriculture.
My name's Carter and I love eating.
My name's Chase and I love lifting weights.
My name's Summer and I love spending my parents' money.
I'm Dane and I love baseball.
Our show is about our blended, blessed, and always a mess life. And our hope is if you find yourself in the same situation we are in, that by sharing our story, all the fun and all the mess, the challenges we are experiencing, it will give you some inspirations, laughs, and community, knowing you are not alone in this mess.
We appreciate you spending time with us. Let's dive in.
Welcome to this week's episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess, where this week the topic is faith over fear. It's just a very relevant topic in our home because, a lot of times with everything that's going on, it feels like things are really bad. I mean, let's be super honest. It feels like it's getting harder at times. And so the only way through that is faith over fear, because fear, it's scary, right? It just is. So we're trying to choose faith, Angie more so than anybody, right? Because at the end of the day, while we're all in pain, a mother's pain is completely different. And so here we are. You keep crawling, you keep scratching, you keep climbing through a day, one day at a time, and faith over fear.
Well, I mean, everybody's afraid of something. And if you ask any mom, their worst fear is to lose a child. So while you think that that's your worst fear, right, of that coming true, and then it happens, the rest of your life could be living in fear. Like you're fearful of the worst thing ever happening, and then it happens, and then you could spend the rest of your life being fearful of everything. And I don't want to live that way because it's too painful. So you deal with what happens after your worst fear comes true. You're trying to navigate trauma, and that's scary in itself, right? So how do you go on? How do you get up every day and face a fearful day? So here we are. I'm living in my life that I've been the most afraid that I've ever been. It's also the time that I've been the most faithful. So it's like, how ironic, right? You don't have to think about your faith or being brave or being strong until you face your worst fear. And I would say that for me, the biggest struggle is the amount of churn that happens in my brain.
Just never stops.
And all the thoughts and everything that you think about in a fearful state is scary. The unrest, the anxiety, the stress, sadness, it's like at an all-time high. And I do at times. I mean, feels like I'm hanging on by a thread.
You're doing great. You're doing great. The last couple of weeks have been really, really hard. And it feels like the more we get settled in to what life looks like now, it's getting harder. There's, a couple different reminders of having all kids together in the last few weeks, except we didn't have one kid. We were missing one. And it's hard. And Angie is praying and she's doing everything she can do. And she's got questions for God, right? I mean, it's okay to have questions. It's okay to be angry. God's strong. He can take it. And I think there's opportunities to grow in your faith even when you're going through this kind of struggle in life.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it has been dark the last couple of weeks, and I have had to really focus on clinging to God. I remember my mom used to say this when we were younger, all it takes is the faith of a mustard seed. Like, that's all you need. And you could move mountains with the faith of a mustard seed.
Jesus says that.
Think about that. Yeah, it's in the Bible. And you just think about that like, okay, surely in this time I can find the faith of a mustard seed. And I do. I want more faith. I want more strength. I don't like feeling weak. We've talked about that in the past. But then, like, I also struggle with blind faith. Like, we've talked about that too. It's like, I don't understand how people can so, like, it feels blindly, faithful in belief without questioning it. Like, I'm analytical. I want to really think about things and try to understand it. And so while this is extremely hard, it also is forcing me to dig a little bit deeper to really understand what having faith means. What the hell does that mean?
Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with if somebody blind faith, good for them. If somebody wants to question their faith, I think that's okay, because what I think you're doing sometimes is deconstructing what you believe to make sure that you believe it, right? Because otherwise, as parents, I think where we sometimes make a mistake is we force our faith on our kids, and then they get to be a certain age, they're like, what do I even believe? Do I even believe that to be actually real? And so sometimes in life, I know for me, I grew up and went to church every Sunday, and this is what you believe, and you're going to do these things. And I did those things. And then hardship came into my life. My dad died. We lose a marriage. All of a sudden, the economy crashes. It's like, I don't know what I believe. And I had to rebuild my faith my own way, finding Jesus through the hard time. I had to find Jesus when things weren't going well for me. Because the blind faith early in my life, that didn't work for me. And so then I had to rebuild that way.
Like, last week was a really, really rough week. And like from Sunday to Sunday. And by Sunday evening, it's like, oh my gosh, I have to change something. And I just started thinking, okay, how much am I actually praying? How much am I actually spending time thinking about my faith, thinking about what that means? And I just started thinking, it's faith over fear. It's faith over fear. And I'm like, that is going to be my mantra. And Monday and Tuesday, I did pretty good.
I agree.
Like,
I thought it was like the best 24-hour period you had in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, but over and over, I'm like, faith over fear, faith over fear. But then Wednesday, Thursday, I'm like super, super busy, absorbed in a million different distractions. And then I feel like I'm tanking. And it's like, that's just it's such a reality check for me that I have got to focus on my faith if I am going to pull myself out of this, because that's literally all you have. Like, my hope is in Jesus. That's the only thing that I have to get me through this. I mean, I have my family and I have my friends, but like, am I going to hang on to that's going to get me to the other side?
I think that that's incredibly well put, and I love to see you coming to this realization, because what I can tell you, if you are ever in my shoes as the spouse, right? This is the hardest thing ever on Angie, and to watch her. What I have learned early on is I do not tell her what to do, how to feel, any of those things, right? Our friend Kay said to me last weekend, she said, just make sure you don't ask her like when she's going to snap out of it or when she's going to, and I'm like, yeah, I said, maybe in my 20s I would have been that dumb, but in my 40s, I'm pretty much just sit back and watch and see what I need.
You were like, you're doing all kinds of things.
But I don't want to say anything, right? Because I can't push you. I can't go, Ange, you just need to have more faith. How would that go? Ange, you know what? You just try this and maybe that'll work. I don't know what's going to work. I don't know if I'm saying the right things. I don't know what's going to work for you. I can't do that. And in my 20s, I would have been dumb enough to think I can fix this. You can't fix it. I can't fix it. Only God, when he decides to fix it, that's when he's going to fix it. So that faith over fear really does matter. You continue down the road of faithfulness, then I think this is what God did in my life. Let me just say this. I think in my own life, I had a faith in God. And I was trying to figure it out. And I kept messing up and making mistakes along the way. And when I finally got to a point where I was like, I cannot, it's all yours. You do it. And I really believed that. Like, a lot of times we say that. We're like, okay, God, I'm giving it to you. But we don't believe that. When I finally got to a point several years into my faith that I believed, I can't do this on my own. You win. I'm going to do it your way. then God said, all right, I'm going to bless you. And not long after that, he blessed me with you and your 3 kids and our family with a life that I could only have dreamed of. But that took me years in my faith journey because I knew I believe in you, God. I believe in you, okay? I'm still going to do some of these things my way because I believe in you, but there's still some things I probably know a little bit better. And it wasn't until I was like, okay, I'm out. You're right. I don't know, Jack. Then it was like, all right, God's going to take over now, full control. And it was very freeing. So I see you in that faith over fear struggle. I agree with you. You know, Monday, Tuesday was the most lifelike, and
I laughed.
Yeah.
I laughed out loud.
Yeah.
At the kids at API. And I'm like, I sent Aric a video, and he's like, oh my gosh, you laughed in that video. And I did, and I like actually felt joy. Like it was just cracking me up. This wrestling game that they were doing in API the kids' fitness.
Chase and Dane were doing a thing.
Yeah, they're at their gym with their trainer, and it was funny, and it was like, oh, God, that like felt good, right? And I've read a bunch about grief, and a lot of what I've read is it's a lonely walk. It's not that you're not surrounded by people, but it is a journey that it's an internal journey. And that's why it's lonely. And I do think it is that walk to find what your faith looks like, right? And then if you unpack that a little bit, it's like, what does faith really mean? Because I think everyone has their own version of what that means. And for me, it's not blind faith. It's like, I want to understand it. And faith is taking that step into uncertainty. That's so hard, right? But then I also think people think that's harder than, like, they don't give themselves enough grace that you're doing that every day.
Sure.
Every day you get up, whether you've had a traumatic experience or not, and you are walking into uncertainty because no one is in control of their life. So everybody can just give themselves a pat on the back, like you're faith over fear. You're still getting up every day, regardless of what's going on in your life. And facing it, there's a Bible verse that's basically walk by faith, not by sight. It's Corinthians 5:7. And
you're impressing me. I mean, man, look at you.
But to me, that's what it means. It's like believing in something that you can't see. And that's hard for people like me that want to know exactly everything that's going to happen or tell me the 6 steps to get through this. Hallie's roommate she had in college ended up getting that tattoo on her foot after Hallie passed. Hallie wanted her to get a tattoo, and she didn't. It was never like felt like it was the right time, and then recently it was the right time. And I love that. It's a great reminder. I mean, if I'm not saying faith over fear, then I should be saying walk by faith, not by sight.
Jesus says very many times in the Gospels, blessed are those who believe and have not seen. Because truly, that's really it. It was easy to see a miracle of a man being cured from blindness or leprosy or having evil spirits thrown from the man's body by Christ. That's easy to believe after you've seen that. But to believe that he died, he rose for the dead, for you and for me, that by living a life of faith in him, that we can one day be with him, with Hallie, with any of our loved ones, that's faith. And so it is very hard. But I also think it's why God takes everybody on their own faith journey. When you have to go back and figure out, do I really believe this? Is this something that I really believe in? And you come to the conclusion that you do, what a rewarding journey that is to have with Christ, I think. That you can go, okay. I just go back to when I was in my late 20s, and I kind of, for a while, was mad at God. I was like, I don't believe you anymore. I did everything I was supposed to do. It didn't work. Then to know I still wanted a relationship with Jesus and to rebuild that on my own and to become the kind of follower that I am today, I think that's a very rewarding experience. But you choose faith over fear in that process. Because as you've said several times, you should be scared every day. You don't know what's going to happen. None of us know what tomorrow is going to bring. We're just not in that control. It's why so many times in the Bible it talks about even our world leaders. If God wants to completely alter what they want to do, he can. He can do those things. So faith over fear, I see you trying to put it into play. I see you trying to put it into action. And I think it's a great motto. Maybe it's a new tattoo for you, is faith over fear.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, by the time I'm done with all this, I might be tattooed up with all the reminders I need to have every day. It's the new Angie.
Your faith over fear could be over the top of your create your own reality.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's got to be a switch up there because I am not in control.
but it definitely changes the create your own reality tattoo into the realization now that there is no real control that any of us have.
As we're talking about, like, what does faith really mean? It also means that's the way to live, because fear stops life. And if you're fearful every day, then you just stop living. And I feel that. Like, I don't want to stop living even when it feels like I've died inside. And I'm trying to navigate that, and I fight against that every day. That's the, again, the faith over fear mantra. But I can tell if I start struggling with my faith and start doubting, that it does feel like I'm not living at all. And I mean, that's a long journey anyway, whenever you do lose a child, but I feel it. It's so true. I mean, fear stops you from living.
I almost think it takes me back a little bit to the last thing that she said to you. Don't worry about me, Mama. I'm going to be okay. Because she knew and she wanted you to live. And honestly, I mean, we've just had too many signs since Hallie passed that she wants her mama to live, right? She wants her mom to, she knows how vibrant you were as a mother, and she doesn't want that to stop for the twins. I don't think she wants that to stop for Lexi, Carter, and Dane. I don't think she wants that to stop for you and I. And so.
And the crazy thing about it is it's so easy to just fall into being afraid. So easy. But faith and fear both require you to believe in something you can't see. But why is it that faith's so hard to have and you can't see it, but you can't see what you're fearing either, right?
Yeah, it's just easier to fear. There's a new trend on social media right now where you and I, significant others, we're in a room together and I would act terrified of something. And because I act terrified, you immediately do it too. And that's what you're saying. Like, it's easy to just buy into fear. It's a buying into faith that is hard. And that's in life. That's whether you're on a team. That's whether you're in a job. Whatever that looks like, buying into faith is the hard part. And where we're at right now, super difficult.
Well, it's also choosing calm over chaos, which is your exact point. If you're chaotic, right, then everything's going to feel chaotic. But if you're calm, that's the presence that you give to everybody else. But then if you're fearful, it's going to be chaotic. If you have faith, you're calm, you trust God, you trust his path, and you go through life in that calm nature.
I just read this week about when you're looking at leaders in life, when things are hard, the real leaders in life stay calm. But most leaders in life that aren't real leaders, they've just been put in positions of authority. Most leaders in life start to look out for themselves when things get chaotic. The real leaders stay calm and they look out for the people that they're in charge of. Interesting, right? And what Jesus did, stayed calm, looked out for his sheep, still looking out for his sheep like a shepherd would. If I'm being honest with you, you've always had that calmness about you. So I do think that you choosing faith over fear is who you are. And you are a true leader in every sense of everything that you do.
It's because I knew I was in charge and I trusted myself.
See, I disagree. I think you...
Hey, I know her. I know she's got my back.
Yeah, I think you thought that. I mean, I think that you trained your mind that you were a leader in that regard because you were in control. What's happening, unfortunately, now is that you're retraining yourself.
Leader in town.
That's right. And you're learning leadership from an even different perspective of, I don't have any control. So how do I lead when I don't have control? Which is the real way that all of us, have to start looking at life.
I think another example of faith over fear is peace over perfection. I mean, there's a lot of inspection happening right now on this podcast. I mean, sometimes we chase perfection. I mean, a lot of the times. But then that disrupts our peace. And that's my word for 2023 is peace. And how in the hell am I going to find peace? And there's only one way is to accept that I am not in control. I'm going to trust God. Perfection's not a freaking thing. It's not a real thing.
Jesus was the only
I'm just
perfect
going to be
human.
content with what I have, regardless of how flippin' painful it is. So that's another mantra. That's another tattoo.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm almost going to get tatted up.
Peace over perfection. And it's true. Jesus was the only perfect human. So for us to assume that we can attain perfection here on earth, it's almost laughable, really. And so for us, you to realize that finding peace rather than perfection is real happiness, that's going to be huge. And we all should strive for that. I should strive for more peace over perfection. I noticed lately.
Can I mix the hangers up in the laundry room then for you?
No. Not talking about OCD right now. We're talking about.
Well, that is kind of perfection.
We're talking about
isn't
OCD. So I've been trying to look at myself inwardly because your faith journey is never done. What are other things that I can do to try to improve my faith? And so I've tried to start doing some Christian meditation this week and also trying to take notes of where maybe I am failing. And one thing I've noticed is that because I feel so lost and out of control right now, because I don't know what to do for you daily and I don't sit well in silence all the time that is required, I feel like I overdo it in certain areas. Maybe it's my hanger obsession in the laundry room. Maybe I'm doing too many chores around the house so that I can feel like there's some kind of worth that I have. I don't know, but I'm just inside reflection as to ways that I know that I can never be perfect, but what am I trying to do right now? I don't know if any of this is making sense as it comes out, but what am I trying to do right now to make myself feel better rather than just trusting the faith and the peace that I'm really trying to find? And so I'm trying to do other activities to get there.
What are you overcompensating for the uncomfortableness that's happening?
Trying to make my laundry perfect, trying to make my home perfect, trying to make, things I know aren't going to make anything better. It's just trying to find some kind of semblance of peace. Dumb. I mean, it's dumb, right? I know it is, and I'm still doing it anyway. That's what I'm trying to say.
So I have another one for you.
Okay.
That's
another example. Here we go.
Another example of faith over fear, and it's heart over hustle.
Okay. All right.
So being busy all the time.
Just talking about that.
She sped right into this. Did you read the notes?
I did read the notes, but I was just talking there.
Yeah. Being busy all the time is sometimes living in fear.
Oh,
and you're fearful, right? So you want to go and do all the things because it is hard to sit in the suck. So I think it's focusing on what your heart's telling you, not, hey, let's just fill every slot up in the calendar and I'm going to do all these things just to keep busy versus what is my heart telling me to do? And I do it too. I mean, I have so many people that say, how do you do all this stuff? Maybe it is I'm trying to just keep busy and think of all these things and make purpose with the pain. And I don't know. That's not healthy probably either. So it's paying attention to that. Am I fearful or am I having faith?
I think sometimes I stay busy because I knew what our marriage was going to be every day. We just had a great life with our kids. I knew what to expect. It was easy. No idea what to expect. No idea what this is ever going to be again. Pretty scared about it. Mm-hmm. So I just stay really busy.
Yeah.
Because I'm good at busy. I can make sure the house is clean and everything's done. I can make sure I'm at all the kids' games. So I can stay busy rather than worry what happens for the rest of our lives because I don't know what's happening tomorrow. Right. I don't know.
Then you just need to have faith.
Faith over fear. Faith over fear. Working on it. See?
Yeah. So I also put together some Bible verses that we can share at the end that kind of is the proof, right? For me, what is the proof? How do I really have faith over fear? And what is the Bible telling me? So 10 verses to fight fear. First one is Timothy 1:7. For God had not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind.
Psalm 56:3. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you.
You're just totally doing that with your radio voice. When I'm afraid.
Honey, when I have time to read it, that goes right into radio guy. I don't know why.
He will never leave me, nor forsake you.
She's making fun of
Do
me.
not be afraid.
I'm going to allow it.
Do not be discouraged.
God.
Deuteronomy 31:8.
John 14:27. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid.
That is, some of these are tall ask.
For sure.
Do not be afraid. That's why I feel like it's always a dance with your faith. There's no way that you're going to just live every day and just be like, oh, I know this is the truth. This is the way I'm going. 99% of the people, is my guess, this is just a total assumption, you're going to have times where you're afraid, where you're going to doubt, where there's this unknown and fear. And it's like, I feel like you have to be conscious of that. You have to be conscious of your thoughts. Like, regardless if we're talking about faith or just your mindset, you have to do an internal assessment on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I could be wrong. I think that part of John might be where the disciples are on the boat and there's a storm, and Jesus is saying, do not let your hearts be troubled. Do not be afraid. And that might not be exactly where it's at, but it's one of those moments where the disciples are scared, and Jesus is trying to tell them, you're in life, you're going to come across these storms. And in those storms, do not let your heart be troubled, and do not be afraid, because you have Jesus. That's what he's trying to say in those moments.
So another one's Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand.
Love it.
I need the strength. See, that's kind of like me begging. It's just the Bible's way of saying, give me strength.
I love it. I love Psalm 34:4. And I sought the Lord, and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. That doesn't mean he's going to do it in that prayer, okay?
That reminds me of the song.
It does. You answer me when I call. To you, Lord, you answer me.
I can't hear that song anymore without crying, but it's true. But it doesn't mean you're going to get the answers that you want, because when I heard that song, I was praying for something, for God to take this weight off my shoulders, and I had no idea what that was going to look like.
I do think it means that God eventually answers our prayers.
Right.
It's just not the way we think and in the moments that we want him to. Everything's on God's time. And when we realize that, things get a little bit easier, I believe.
So another one of Deuteronomy 31:6 is, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you, and he'll never leave you nor forsake you.
It's pretty. John 4:18 kind of goes with today's topic, faith over fear. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. It makes a lot of sense.
It does. Another one is Psalm 118:6. The Lord is with me. I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? Ugh.
That's so true.
I mean, they can do a lot.
I was listening to music this week. It's where I find a lot of my refuge. And I remembered on my iTunes, I have a Vince Gill song that came out a few years ago. And it was not a popular song. It never got any radio airplay. If you're a believer and you're going through a hard time like we are right now, this is one of those songs that you probably want to listen to. It's called Threaten Me with Heaven. And that's really what Psalm 118:6 is saying. The Lord is with me. I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? And in that song, it's on repeat. It's clear that he's going to pass. Okay. Threaten me with heaven. What's wrong with that? You can tell me right now I can go to heaven and be with Hallie again? I'm not scared of that. Threaten me with heaven. I'm okay with that. The last one on here is Psalm 23:4. Of course, this is one of when it comes to the Bible's greatest hits, this is in the Bible's greatest hits version 1. Psalm 23 verse 4. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. I mean, that's it. That's faith over fear right there.
It's a wrap. That's what we have.
Look at you.
We did the countdown.
She did it. She's talked about her fear. I would just ask everybody this week that if you would continue to pray for our hearts, but especially for Angie. It's been a hard couple of weeks. Been really difficult for her to crawl through the day, but she is doing it. And I couldn't be more proud of you, and our kids love you and are proud of you. And we see how hard it is every day for you to get through it. And so, but I do ask for the listeners if they would say a special prayer for you this week. I'd be grateful. So if you'll say that prayer, we appreciate it more than you know. And that'll do it for this week's episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. God bless.
Thank you for listening to Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at blendedblessedalwaysamess.com.
Reach out to us on any of our social channels. We would love to hear from you. Have a great week.